Obviously, the NCAA approved coach-to-player communication inside the helmets. Just kind of an overview of that. 5 guys are designated on each side of the football. Obviously, on offense, it's probably going to be your quarterback. On the defense, we're kind of working through who exactly those guys are going to be. During the play, only one person with the helmet inside, with the comms inside their helmet, can be on the field at a time. Those helmets are designated by this green dot, coach to player green dot here on the back. It is the responsibility of the officials. The back judge, I believe, is the one that's responsible for identifying if 2 guys are on the field at one time. So that it's our responsibility as equipment staff. Obviously, offensively with the quarterbacks, if there's a change there, that's pretty easy, usually a stoppage of play. With the defense, it's something we're working through. We've got to have 2 helmets for every guy defensively that is going to be designated in one of these, and making sure we're aware of personnel changes and all that type of stuff going on the field, so that, say, Austin Keys and Eugene both have one in their helmet, only one of them can go out there with their comms and their helmet at a time. And then just being aware of what's going on, when Coach Durkin and the defensive staff is making subs and changes, of being able to make sure that, if someone's going on the field when Keys is on the field with his comm, if he's coming off, making sure the guy that's going on the field has his helmet with comms in it. How that works is it's just really installed inside the helmet, and you guys can take pictures of it. But there's a pad we put over it to make sure it stays in place, but then it's just like a comms unit in here. And then we charge and attach a battery to it. When that happens, it then becomes live, and what it does is then you have a radio that is connected to our coach's headsets, and then all he has to do, press this little button, and you guys can hear the comms coming out of the helmet. Obviously, in the college game, there's not as much huddling going on as in the NFL. It's something that the coaching staff is working through of, do you huddle more? Do you try and slow the game down so that you can just talk to the player on the field offensively? Obviously, with the Connor Stallion stuff and the sign stealing and all of that with Michigan, this has been a very prevalent thing in college football to get it passed. It does cut off during games at the 15-second mark on the play clock. There is a cutoff switch upstairs near the coach's booth, and there's GSC is the company that the SEC contracted with. All of the SEC schools have the same communication unit inside the helmet from that company. They will have techs at each game on Saturday running that cutoff unit. Their sole responsibility is to look at the play clock. The moment that the play clock hits 15, they hit a switch and it cuts off. What?
Oh yeah, both sides cut off at the same time.
Both sides cut off at the same time. So in the unit, there's an offensive unit and a defensive unit, or a home unit and an away unit, excuse me. That company has coordinated frequencies for. So I have a list of, you can turn these to different channels, right? So our home channel is different than when we go on the road to Georgia, and that's all been coordinated through the company, and they will have techs on site making sure that 2.5 hours before the game, I believe we have a meeting with them to make sure that all of the comms are working, everything's good to go, and ready for the game. I'm sure it's something we're all working through. I'm sure you get into the middle of games and it gets hectic and all of that type of stuff. I'm sure there will be some days that there's a lot of intense conversations going on about the fuzziness of it or whatnot, but it's something that we as an equipment staff are working through, and so far in camp it's been something that we've used and it's been really, really good so far.
There's always a need to go to the stadium and do a kind of a checklist. Has this made it where you need to do more than one of those just to kind of work out all those kinks?
It is absolutely it's added task lists for us as an equipment department to our normal game day checklist, as well as practice. We've been using it in every practice as well, and it's just another task that gets added to us as a staff to make sure that it's ready to go and working properly. It will become a part of, obviously, every game day we check our headsets, make sure they're clear, communicating to the box, to the field, all that type of stuff, and it's just something that'll get added to that checklist for us.
What's the battery life on something like this? Is it a rechargeable
It is a rechargeable battery. Battery life is 3 to 4 hours. They recommend that we change it out at halftime. And so that's another thing that will be added to our game day duties. As far as they say 3 to 4 hours, I've seen it last longer than that when we've been in some practices. But it's not something that you want to risk of, oh, we were in a practice and it lasted for 6 hours. We can just leave it in there for the game. Well, you get on the back end of that in the fourth quarter and all of a sudden the battery decides to cut out. It wouldn't be something that would be an ideal situation for us. So we will be changing out the batteries at halftime in all of our helmets. It's a thing too that, like, for those guys, not only will Peyton have one, it's his primary one with communications in it, but also on the sideline we will have a backup helmet that is built for him that has a communications unit in it as well. If something were to go haywire, instead of trying to sit there and fiddle with the helmet and figure out what's wrong, we can just take the one that's already we know is working, is his backup communication helmet, toss that to him, and then go identify and fix the problem in the helmet.
You mentioned five guys have it. I mean, you have to designate those. What
Those-
happens if somebody gets hurt? I mean, what's
So those have to be designated before the game, per the SEC. And if someone gets hurt, I'm not sure as far as that during the game, but the conference felt that 5 guys was an ample enough number that if something were to happen to 1 or 2 of those guys, you still should be fine and be able to be covered.
would you pretty much need your backup quarterback to always
Yeah,
be able to
it's up to Coach Freeze and the staff to decide offensively and defensively who those 5 guys are. As far as practice right now, we've been running it in all of the quarterbacks, and it would not surprise me if that was the route that we went offensively, that it was just in the quarterbacks, and all of those guys will have helmets with comms in it for games and be ready to roll.
You're responsible for your equipment, home and road, or is it sort of a home stadium?
So the cutoff switch will stay in the stadium, but as far as traveling our equipment inside the helmet, we are responsible for that and bringing it to the other stadiums when we go on the road this year.
You mentioned sign stealing. What kind of security is in place to keep people from listening in to the conversation?
That is for the tech nerds that work for these companies and the SEC and all of that. They have been, GSC is a company that's been doing it in the NFL for a really, really long time. It was one of the reasons why the SEC decided to go with them as our coach-to-player communication company. They assure us that there won't be any crossover as far as people trying to listen in or anything like that.
How have the players responded for them for the first time doing this?
The players have responded really well to it. It's something we're working through of getting the volume right, making sure you turn a walkie-talkie up too loud and it can get a little fuzzy. So making sure that it's at the right volume for them, but it's also something that they've enjoyed, and it's a new part of football, and it's something that is going to prepare them for the next level as well. It is something that's prevalent in the NFL, so they're not walking into their first training camp in the NFL, and it's completely new to them. They will get more and more comfortable with it, as with anything new. The more that we do it, the more games we go through with it. But so far, it's been good and a welcome change.
It is a one-way though. I mean, they can't talk to
Correct.
the coach, correct?
Correct. It's a one-way radio, and obviously with the walkie-talkie running through the headset, Coach Freeze can press his button, talk to Peyton, and all of the other coaches can hear what's going on, but they cannot talk to Peyton unless you have the attachment that allows you to talk to the in-game unit.
Okay, so then like Durkin would then have.
Durkin has one for a
defensive
different frequency for the defensive guys.
Yeah.
There's not a limit on offensively or defensively how many guys can have this. So we can put it on Durkin and Coach Nix and Kent Austin and whoever it might be, just depending on game scenarios. If they need to talk to him, only one person at a time can be pressing the button. So say Coach Freeze is talking to Peyton and Coach Austin wants to say something to him, he'll get a dial tone in his headset that says somebody else is on the line at the time. So that'll be another thing that they work through as a staff. But it's not something where Peyton can then turn around, hit a button, and talk back to them.
Is it like the headsets in that if ours goes out, it wouldn't have to turn it
Correct.
off?
If there is a complete and total failure of the system, from one of the teams. The other team is then required to turn theirs off and until the problem is fixed.
And this is only for conference games?
It's for every game.
Very good.
It's for every game. You good?
Thank you.